So yeah, Rob asked me a couple weeks ago to preach, and I said, I don't really want to preach, but I would be willing to come and share kind of about our time here in Thailand. So that was kind of my first partnership. And I also said, but on the condition that my wife can come with me. And he said, yeah, sure. But apparently I forgot to consult my wife before starting my negotiations, so I am going to be up here by myself. But she did contribute a little bit, so you get some of her thoughts in here. Yeah, basically just want to share kind of our journey over the last 5.5 years. You know, we've been reflecting on that for the last several months, really. And so this is going to be an opportunity to kind of think through that a little more systematically, hopefully. And hopefully I won't ramble too much, but share some stories, some scriptures, some things that have been meaningful to us. So this is us over the 5 years. We came just the two of us. A year and a half or so in, William came, and then just less than William again, and then Pedro came, and that's this year. So the family's grown, and I think we've grown in a few different ways too. So one thing we do every year is send out an annual report to all of our supporters, and one thing Lauren has done this year is kind of our final year is put together these timelines. So it's like 5-year timeline of what we've been doing. So just on like a activity level, this is what we've been doing. So we came, we learned language, we traveled, saw different BAM companies around. We did help upon our house helper start a little bagel business as part of our language learning and kind of dabbling in business. And then in year 2, we continued to kind of do those same things, continue traveling, more businesses. We went back to America, we started looking at Bamboo Bikes as a business, and then you see William was born at the end of that. And then year 3, I guess this was kind of year 2 as well, we were helping to set up a foundation with the organization we're with. We were writing our business plan, raising startup capital, and the business Expat Homes got approved right at the end of that year. And then year 4, started hiring employees, started working, took a vacation in Japan, that was fun, and just really busy with work stuff. And then this year, or a year and a half, I guess, Keiko was born at the beginning of 2015. The business has continued to grow, and then Lauren was bored, so she decided to jump on this border run thing with Pond, and so they've been making burritos and getting the food truck going, and then we've been trying to transition both those things, Expat Homes and burritos, and the bagels, actually, to other people and keep that going all the way. So that's a lot of stuff, it's a lot of activity, it's a lot of busyness. We did a lot of stuff over here, but that's not really, I guess when I think back on our time in Thailand, that's not what I'm going to remember. I don't think that's what impacted us and has kind of shaped us and molded us for the future. And so as we were singing that song Never Once, actually last week, I was thinking about that, and I just was like struck by how perfectly that fit kind of our time here. And then I went back this week as I was thinking about what I was going to say and kind of reflected on that some more. And it really started to sneak in with me. And so I'll just kind of read through that and flip through the slides as they go. But the very first kind of stanza there is, standing on this mountaintop, looking just how far we've come, knowing that for every step you were with us. And so I feel like that's kind of where we are now. We're on this mountaintop, we're looking back, it all kind of looks good, like the timelines were pretty. But then the next thing that says, kneeling on this battleground, seeing just how much you've done, knowing every victory was your power in us. And so the focus starts to shift a little bit more to God and a little bit less to us. And then it continues, it says, scars and struggles on the way, but with joy our hearts can say, yes, our hearts can say, never once did we ever walk alone. Never once did you leave us on our own. You are faithful, God, you are faithful. So I think there you start to really feel like the struggle, the pain, the like hardness of it all. And then at the end it finishes, carried by your constant grace, held within your perfect peace. Never once, no, we never walked alone. Every step we're breathing in your grace, evermore we'll be breathing out your praise. You are faithful, God, you are faithful. You are faithful, God, you are faithful. And so I think at the end it becomes this like, every step, like, you know, at the beginning we're kind of looking big broad strokes, but all of a sudden it's like, we're just kind of trudging along step by step, breathing in God's grace and breathing out His praise. And I think as I look back, you know, it's easy to look and just kind of skim over all the events and details that have happened, but then as you really start to remember and think through those things, like that's more what it was like. It was that step by step, just like, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? Kind of thing. Yeah, it kind of got me thinking, and so I was wanting to talk about God's faithfulness, kind of being inspired by that song. And as I started looking at that in Scripture, there's really 2 contexts in which God's faithfulness is talked about. In the Old Testament, it's almost exclusively when He's talking about the covenant and His promises to His people. In the New Testament, it's almost exclusively when he's talking about pain and struggle and suffering and endurance. And it continues to focus on God's faithfulness. And so as I saw that, I kind of looked back at the song and I thought, wow, the song, though it's not like word for word scripture, it's really pulling on that theme of God's faithfulness and struggle kind of hand in hand. And then as I continue to think about our time, that was also how our time really looked as I started thinking about that. So you can flip there. So this is the same timeline. Hit it again there. But this is more kind of how it was, what it was like. You know, we came in, we're kind of, everything's great, whatever. And then things started to kind of get a little worse. You know, you get some culture shock, language comes in, you're missing your friends, your family, and holidays. And then, you know, the lack of community for a while, you can kind of do it by yourself, but then you start to realize, oh, it's hard when we don't have friends and we are trying to hang out with guys all the time. We don't really understand them, they don't really understand us. Lauren's grandpa passed away, we couldn't go home for that. You know, we knew Lauren knew, I guess she was pregnant when we were pregnant. You know, the fear of having a baby, first kid in a hospital, in a foreign place, away from your family, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening there. And then postpartum, and that's, anybody who's had a kid kind of understands that, and what that brings. And then we spent a full month in team counseling, trying to work through a bunch of junk every single day, 2 hours a day in a counseling session, which if you're a counselor, you know that's a terrible idea. We thought we were going to leave, you know, then our marriage is struggling, Lauren's depressed, I'm angry, you know, I think in that period, probably more yelling than ever has happened in our house. Lauren kicked in a door, if you can believe that, in our other house. Hit me probably multiple times. There's a lot going on. So then Lauren's in counseling by herself this time. The business is trying to start up, and there's a ton of uncertainty surrounding that. So, you know, we don't know if the business is going to get approved. We don't know if our visas are going to get approved. We don't know if we can hire employees. There's no real clear path on how to do it. It's just constant stress, frustration. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the next year, now I'm depressed. Lauren's kind of coming out. I'm depressed. I'm starting to struggle with some sexual sins, messing around the internet, looking at stuff I shouldn't be looking at. And we're falling apart. Spiritual attack and all this stuff's happening. I'm in counseling now. We're doing marriage counseling. Stopped working for a while. We had just started the business. Just shut it down for a month to like kind of figure myself out. And then it's just the wear and tear of life and business and doing life in Thailand and trying to have friends and all that stuff. And you know, then this year has been, we got stuck in America. Keiko came early. We thought she was going to come early, and the doctors wouldn't let us fly, so we were stuck in America for several months waiting for her. And Stephens were trying to go home on their own assignment, waiting for us to come back. That was busy. Lauren tried to bail him out for herself. Border run, she didn't particularly like it. A lot of frustrations, and she got a little glimpse into my world. And now we're kind of maybe coming out of that. I don't know. Who knows? Life may be like this forever. I'm not sure. But I guess as I started looking at our time, I just realized like that's reality, like that's life. It's not all the mountaintops, it's not all the things that were accomplished or weren't accomplished or whatever. Nobody really cares about that. And it doesn't mean a lot. But yeah, I think in that, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but God has really shaped us and molded us and changed us, grown us. And I think that's really what I want to focus on today, and that's really what I guess as we leave, that's what I want to focus on for myself too. So to fill in some blanks for you guys, both Lauren and I grew up in Christian homes, relatively privileged homes, families, didn't experience much struggle or suffering in our early lives. We did well at school, we did well at work, whatever it was, kind of successful, not much hard stuff. And so we went to pre-field training at MTI, I don't know if anybody's been there, but great experience, really well seasoned, experienced people. And they spent a lot of time talking about hard stuff and suffering. We went and they had us kind of, one of the things, exercises, like we want to talk about it more in like our previous pain history, whatever. And like, we had nothing. We're like, I'm like trying to make things up. Like I was like, oh, I got benched my freshman year of basketball and I was unjustly sat the bench penalty. Like that was the most suffering I experienced at that point in my life. It was just like pathetic. I didn't even want to say it out loud. It's embarrassing. And other people are just like pouring out their hearts. And so I remember us sitting there and just talking that night together, just like, are we ready for this? Like, are you scared? Like, we both were kind of scared, but also didn't know, but also had this like arrogance, like, oh, it's not going to happen to us. Like, we know better. We'll make better decisions. We're not going to do that kind of stupid stuff. Like, kind of like it's people's fault when they end up in suffering. And it's not, I guess what we learned is that's not true. Always. Sometimes it is. So anyways, they told us that suffering was not the expectation, but it was the norm. And so, yeah, I think coming here, we knew that, but we weren't ready for it. I don't know if you can be, honestly, until you run up against that. And so the first, as I was looking at this word study, I picked out a couple of scriptures that I thought spoke to this particularly well. So the first one is 1 Peter 4. It says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share in Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed." And then skipping down a little bit, it says, "Therefore, let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good." So again, even though we're warned, even though we know the scripture, even though we should be prepared for this, when it came, we're shocked. And I think Lauren especially, she grew up in a home, her father was a great provider, protector, all about safety and security. And so for her especially, this idea of like a Father God allowing us or even ordaining suffering for us was just so almost irreconcilable. And so for her, it was like the only thing she knew how to do was run and to try to get away from it and to try to escape the suffering, because clearly that would not be what God would want for us. And so, I remember one particular time Brett and Liv had just got here. I mean, these guys are our best friends. I've known Brett since we were probably 12 years old. We've been praying for them. I had been praying specifically for them to come for 5 years since college. And they arrived, and the day they get here, we could hardly even say hello. We were so burnt out. We were so down in the dumps, so depressed, whatever. And they're like, "What's wrong with you guys?" And so that's kind of the context. And so that happens. We decided to take a little getaway, whatever, retreat, just the two of us. And I just remember Lauren laying on the floor, just like bawling, saying, like, what are we doing? Like, this can't be right. This can't be right. I can't do this anymore. You need to take me home. We have to go back to America. As if America was the answer, right? And I think that's, I was sitting there totally just not knowing what to do, like feeling helpless. Like, I see my wife hurting, I want to help her, I want to like get away, but I don't think America's the answer. And I had this really strong like feeling, conviction, whatever you want to call it, that God brought us here and it's not time to go yet. And so just like this inner turmoil of like, what do I do with this? Like, what do I do with my wife who's like falling apart literally on the floor here? But then on the other side, feeling this huge pull, like God's got us here and he's not letting us leave. So what am I supposed to do? And so I just like, over that day, night, week, months ahead, just tried to like keep asking Lord, hang in here, stay here with me. Like, God has us here. He's here. He can heal us. He can fix this, whatever. And in His grace and love, He did, and she stayed. And we slowly but surely started to see that happening. And I think there were lots of times throughout that, over the coming months, where Lauren was really struggling with feeling like I was choosing the mission, I was choosing the business, I was choosing Thailand, I was choosing the step, like whatever it was, I was choosing over her, over our relationship, over our marriage, over our family. And I think it was just such a battle for both of us to not like believe the lies and to encourage each other, to challenge each other in those times. And so I think, again, by God's grace, we kind of came through that. We saw a lot of healing in our team, in our relationships, individually, in our marriage. And praise God, like we were able to kind of stick it out for some really, really hard times. And then another one that really stuck out to me was 2 Timothy 2:2. Missionaries know this one well, and I like to trumpet it, but I think we usually read the first two verses. It says, "You then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also." And then we either like mumble, or we skip this verse, or we don't say it very loud, or something happens, but we usually forget the part where it says, "Sharing sufferings as a good soldier of Jesus Christ." And then we skip and we talk about being a soldier, and all these analogies. But it talks about sharing in sufferings, and then, again, if you skip down a little bit, the next one, it says, "Therefore, I endure everything for the sake of the elect, that they may obtain salvation that is in Christ Jesus with eternal glory." The saying is trustworthy, for if we have died with him, we will also live with him. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will deny us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. And so as I was reading this one, it just took me to a whole other situation or story, kind of around that same season, but I actually had several occasions that I was thinking of, and I couldn't really pin one down, but I remember many times walking alone in the middle of the night after something blew up, we were fighting, we're mad, or we just got another ridiculous counseling meeting with our team, us, whatever, and just like, I would just take off, like I just had to be by myself and get away, so I'd walk, or run, or ride a motorcycle, or whatever. And I remember many nights, Chris saw me wandering around, like, I can't think, is he drunk? What's wrong with this guy? Wandering, stumbling on the side of the road. But just like walking in the dark, like thinking to myself, what is happening? And then one particular day I went, this was actually during the day, I went over to the Machaw ag campus, and there's a little lake there, and I remember just like standing next to the lake and just taking anything I could find and just whipping it as far as I could into the lake and just like yelling at God. Like, what the heck are we doing here? Where are you? What? Everything's going to crap. Like, what is the deal? And I mean, that's the church version. If you ask me outside of church, I'll tell you much more clearly what I said, actually. But I just didn't know what to do anymore. It was just like, we were falling apart individually, we were falling apart as a couple. Our team was kind of falling apart. It felt like our business was never going to happen. There was just so much things happening. And we had just kind of come through this really difficult season of us, and sort of were coming out of that. But then everything else was like, still crap. And I'm just like, did God really bring us here? Like, did he really ask us to come here? Or did we just like think that up in our head? Did we somewhere get off track from like his will for us? Like we had this idea that maybe if we stay in God's will, it would be like sunshine and rainbows. Or I did, I guess. And so as soon as that starts to not happen, it's like, you know, is God here? Is he in this? Is he listening? Does he care? Is he even real? I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm totally faithless. Like as the scripture talks about, I'm totally faithless. And I think back on that now, like at the time, I definitely wasn't thinking this, but as I think back on it now, I think God was sitting there, probably a lot like how I look at my kid when he's about to do something stupid, or just did something stupid, or directly disobeyed me, or whatever. Or he's not even necessarily doing it intentionally, he's just about to walk into something I know he's going to get hurt, or he's going to mess up, or whatever, but sometimes you just let him do it anyways because they got to learn, right? And so I imagine God sitting there thinking, how long is my stubborn, selfish, sinful son going to like keep making dumb decisions? How long is it going to take for him to learn that even though he's faithless, I'm faithful? Even though he's messed up, I can redeem that. That even though his marriage is falling apart, I can put that back together. His business, I can put that back together. Like whatever it is, like God's there. And so I just think it was a really interesting season to look back on and reflect on. And I think, you know, we wouldn't have known, I think today, his faithfulness, his grace, his love, any of those things nearly as deeply without having gone through those really, really hard times. And then the last scripture is 2 Corinthians 4. It says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We're afflicted in every way but not crushed, perplexed but not driven to despair, persecuted but not forsaken, struck down but not destroyed. And you skip down a bit. It says, so we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light, momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. So I think that, again, just this idea of like weakness and suffering, but paralleled by God's faithfulness and then just the eternality of our existence, and how that like juxtaposition really like kind of puts us in our place, or it should, if we can like take a step back and actually see that. And I think for me, like, again, I grew up in a very legalistic culture, and I think the gospel was pretty, I don't even know what to say it was, but I think my idea was you become a Christian and you start to do everything right, and you try to look right, and you try to do it right, and you try to act right, and all this stuff is about being right, and it's really all about saving face. Like, the same as the Thais like to save face, we like to save face too, or at least in my culture we do. And so, like, the whole idea of exposing sin, exposing weakness, exposing anything, we just didn't do it. And it's all about hiding behind this facade of, like, having it all together, doing it all right. And so I think I was really struck, like, wanting to come up here and talk, but also just thinking through, like, I think that's something that we've really learned in the last 5 years is, like, the gospel is not about getting it all right. The gospel is about how we get it all wrong. And despite that, God loves us. Despite that, the community around us loves us and comes in and pushes in those times when we're broken, when we're messed up, when we're sinning, when we're whatever it was. And I think we really were blessed to have great community, great people, great mentors around us who did that. And yeah, I think, again, it just has shaped us for how we'll live as we go home, for how we'll do community as we go home, for how we'll be as older people, hopefully with some life experience and wisdom, speaking to younger people in our lives. So I guess I know there's people in this room who have had immensely more suffering and struggle than what we've had and what we've talked about. So I'm definitely not up here to preach to you. And I know there's people around the world who are dying and suffering physically every day for the gospel. So, it's not about that at all. But I guess I just don't say that to make anybody feel scared or discouraged or like I'm up here to tell you something. But I say it to prepare a little bit or warn maybe the people who are like me who had no clue and who showed up here like thinking everything was going to be great and maybe it's not, or maybe it's not going to be next week or next month or next year. And I say to encourage the people who are in the midst of really hard times. Like, I know I was there, and I know there were people who came and said, hey, I've been there, I've struggled, we did this happened, whatever, and we're transparent, and it really spoke to us. And so, yeah, to encourage those of you who are really struggling now. And honestly, I say it to remind myself, because I think, we're leaving, we're going back to America, and everybody knows the grass is always greener in America. And it's not going to be like, it's going to be just as hard, if not harder, and there's going to be struggle, and there's going to be trial, but we can go into that knowing that God is faithful, that we have nothing to fear, and that He's going to be with us no matter what. And I think that, yeah, as we walk away with that, I feel like that's the best gift, the best lesson, whatever, that we could have taken with not expat films, not Border Run, not any of this other stuff, like that all, at the end of the day, that's all going to burn. I mean, hopefully it impacts some people's lives, but it's pretty minimal in the grand scheme of things. But I think the work that God's done in us is much bigger and will go with us for the rest of our lives, and hopefully, like it talks about, is shaping us for this eternal weight of glory that we get to spend forever with God. And yeah, I look forward to that. And so just want to reiterate, you are faithful, God, you are faithful. So let's pray. Lord, thanks for this season. Thanks for the ups and downs, the challenges, the struggles, the joys, the successes, the wins. There's so many of all of those. And yeah, it's been hard. It's been a lot of different things. But in it all, you've been faithful. And I just pray that we, as a body, as a community, as a church, would know that we would spur one another on to follow you, to trust you, no matter what, and that we walk with those people who are broken and struggling with sin, struggling with heartache, whatever it might be. Just trust that you're there, and that you are sovereign, and that you never leave us or forsake us. In our weakness, that you are strong at. So, yeah, we praise you. We praise you, Jesus, for coming to make the gospel a reality that can heal us and fix our brokenness. And praise you, God, that you are a loving Father who sticks by our side no matter what, and always faithful. So, yeah, we just pray that you be with each one today, and bless us as we